Good evening. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. Thank you for joining us this evening. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, a very special thank you. Before I introduce our guests for the evening, I just want to take a moment to introduce our new audience to the goals of CWS. CWS is about having conversations with people about their journeys. How are they using their gifts and talents to help others? How are they contributing in a positive way to humanity? And saying that, I would like to say this, that I believe we all have a story to tell. And it's in those stories that we find the various pearls or the various treasures. I love success. I always encourage success. I think success is extremely important, not particularly only for the individual, but what it represents to all of us. I think of success as beacons of light, that when someone is successful and they must shine so that others can recognize that they too can also shine. But in those stories, I also look for challenges and how the guests might have overcome some of their challenges. Not to focus entirely on challenges, but what I like about someone overcoming challenges is that to me, that represents the true metal of the person, who they are, who their character is, who they are as a person. And what I like to say about this is imagine there's a young person anywhere in the world, any young man, any young woman listening to you, a successful person, talking not only about your successes, but how you might have overcome a challenge. And imagine that person one day becoming the next leader of a nation, or becoming, or that may stop a genocide, or may becoming the next geneticist or oncologist. We don't know. And that is why I celebrate people who are able to give unconditionally, give without expectations. Because when we give and not have any expectations beyond those give, or put obligations on the receiver, I think that's the greatest form of giving. To give and not know the extent of your gift. And when I say this, I think about many of our great leaders that have gone on. Those who went in the trenches and fought hard for social changes, for social justice, and not daring to be brave, and not caring whether they are around to see the results of their sacrifice. That, to me, tells a lot about a person's character. Fear, when we think about success or we think about taking that step towards success, fear comes in. And I challenge you to show me someone who's successful that never troubled or never battled with fear. Fear to me is always there. But what I believe though, and this I came to this conclusion from talking to many successful people, is that success corrodes or erodes fear. Fear doesn't entirely go away, but the more successful you become, the more you take that next step, fear dissipates. So without much further ado, I'll take a break, and when I return, I'll introduce you to our guest for the evening. We are back. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. And the gentleman next to me is J.W. Anthony Mair. Anthony, good evening, sir.
Good evening, brother. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. It's good to finally get you on the show.
I'm
Welcome,
honored to be here.
welcome. I'm just gonna start by going into your bio a little. Um, like his mother, Anthony successfully completed his culinary training at George Brown College. During college, he set off to refine his cooking skills by competing in chef competitions across North America, garnering numerous gold and silver medals in the process. Always looking for new challenges, Anthony accepted a position with the Tolmac Group and set off on a great ride as their new sous chef. The Tolmac Group is a Toronto-based parent company to some of the city's more popular establishments, such as Pavilion, Royal Reception Facilities, Senator on the Square Restaurant, Yuck Yucks Comedy Club, and the Atlantis Entertainment Complex. After only 6 years, he was promoted to the position of corporate chef for the entire conglomerate. Feeling the need for a change, Anthony accepted the executive chef position at Joe Badali's Italian restaurant, a 17,000 square foot facility and seating for over 500. Next was a move to Paris, Ontario, where Anthony was given the opportunity to re-outfit the 150-year-old Arlington Hotel dining room and lounge facilities. By 2001, he opened his own restaurant, Mardi Gras, in Toronto's Blue West Village. Mardi Gras gained notoriety for its Cajun Creole menus and for successfully exposing Toronto's food lovers to soul food. He moved to Kiev, Ukraine in 2005, where again he opened his own restaurant. After 3 years of successfully planting soul food on European soil, he returned to Toronto and embarked on a partnership with Harlem restaurant owner Carl Castle. Together, they successfully revived Harlem Restaurant and rebranded what was formerly known as the Irie Restaurant into the Harlem Underground. It has attracted a loyal fan base, which continues to grow exponentially. Good soul food will do that. My dear friends, with all the exposure, including television and other media, and the successes at cooking competitions, how would you describe J.W. Anthony Mair? Or would you rather the conversation show us?
I would love for the conversation to express the willingness to continue to showcase the cuisine of my culture and my heritage, to recognize it as being worldwide, not and without limits. Our food, it's for me, food is intrinsic. I'm a farm boy. Yeah, I grew up on a farm in Jamaica, and I would love to express to you how I've been able to transcend food from its most simplest format and present it to world leaders and put it on a world stage so that we can see our food differently.
Okay. Anthony, before we continue, could you just make a slight adjustment for me? I think you've moved forward a little too right. That's good. Well, I assure you that with the questions and so on over the length of the show, some of what you require or you request will come out.
All right.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I said, okay, what would you cook at home if you were just making a laid back dinner?
What would I cook at home?
Yes,
if I was making a laid-back dinner. I would. I have to tell you, I don't plan my meals like that. I've got this thing that I walk into the kitchen and whatever my hands grab, whatever my eyes see, I start. And as an example, if I went downstairs into the kitchen right now, I would, in the mood that I'm in, I have bok choy in my fridge. I have kale in my fridge. I have a piece of stewing beef in my fridge. I would make a Caribbean-esque stew beef and saute kale and bok choy and probably consume that with sweet potato.
Wow, I'm sure some of our audience are salivating right now. When you hear the word soul food, what comes to mind?
Food that is prepared with extra special care for the family to ensure its nutritional value, to ensure that the family can get up tomorrow, go to sleep tonight, full, sustained, happy, and wake up tomorrow not famished. And we would be able to do that with no matter what we have in our home based on the fact that it's prepared with love. So soul food for me was not necessarily just about the items itself, but the love that is put into it once it's being prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you walk into a kitchen, um, what do you see that most of us untrained in the culinary arts may never or is hardly likely to see? What do you see? What?
I look at the layout of the kitchen because anytime I walk in, for me, it's about expediency.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to walk into, we do a lot of catering, and I walk into kitchens 3-4 times a week that I have not used before, and I immediately start factoring into my mind how many steps it's going to take, how many bodies I'm going to need in order to execute this event, where are the stoves, where are the fridges, where are the sinks, how many people do I need to execute this event properly. And so for me, it's always logistics, because in our world, time is money. And when I walk into a kitchen, I need to make sure that I am going to be proficient on every level in executing this event. So space is space, and just the layout of the kitchen is important.
I'm going to go down your timeline a little bit, Anthony. Is there a particular memory from childhood that still resonates with you to this day, which keeps you motivated?
Yeah, well, there are many, but I have to tell you, the one that's probably most significant, being a farm boy, you get to really appreciate the soil. You get to appreciate what Mother Nature, how the strength of Mother Nature. You get to really respect her power. If you get to respect rain and droughts, and you get to understand it, and you have to start learning how to prepare for it so that you don't starve, really. If it is that you are living off of the land, if everything that you living off the land, so you are producing food not only for yourself but to sell, so that you are able to pay your bills and send your family to school and buy clothes. You have to pay very special attention to your surroundings, and to planning, and to reaping, and to sowing, and to those types of scenarios that a lot of us today take for granted. So in growing up that way, I'm very in tune with the land and the surroundings today. So the lessons that I take from my earlier years is that to be prepared for things that most people sort of take for granted. So it's about really being one with nature and the food, and respecting it.
So would it be accurate to say that growing up that way gave you your first introduction into management then?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Did you enjoy school as a child, as a young boy, and what was your favorite subject?
No. I didn't like school at all. I was a horrible student. I went to school for a little while in Jamaica before I came to Toronto, Canada, to continue my education.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I got to Toronto at 7, I hadn't spent a lot of time in school in the Caribbean.
Okay.
So coming to Toronto and being thrown into a system that I didn't quite understand, nor did they really understand me, schooling was very difficult for me. I would say that I didn't learn much in the first few years of coming into school in this country.
Can you give us a glimpse into the 13 years old, the 18 years old, and then the 26-year-old Anthony Mair?
Absolutely. The 13-year-old Anthony Mair was confused and lost, searching, really, trying to understand where you fit in this world. Mm-hmm. Who are you? Identity. You were so you are bombarded with all of these images of what family life is and what success is and what, the peer pressure is on you. So at 13, I was just a confused, lost little soul. And I probably continued that way for a few more years. 18, I had dropped out of school. I had moved out of my mother's house. I was living on my own, trying to figure out, again, your place in this world. It was probably at that time in my life where I read the very first book that I probably ever read, which was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that book changed my life. I read that book 11 times between the age of 18 to 21. What I was searching for and what I was realizing was... Selwyn?
Yes, I'm here.
It's just really, I'm getting some feedback. Give me a second.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. Between the ages of 18 and 21, I read Think and Grow Rich about 11 times. I was searching. I knew what poverty was. I knew what unhappiness was. I knew, all of those types of adverse situations that we all sort of go through, at that point in time where you're trying to figure out your path. And I consciously made this decision that I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want to experience poverty. I didn't want to experience that type of hurt. I didn't want that in my life anymore. I was well aware of what that was. Mm-hmm. And by reading Think and Grow Rich, it made me realize that there are choices that I can and should be making if I wanted to change those scenarios in my life. And I was meeting people, and they were going away to Europe for a month, and they were traveling, and they were buying houses, and they were making plans, and not having that type of structure in my life at the time. I wanted it. I craved it because I wanted to know what success was like. I had never experienced it up until that point in my life. And I set off on the journey to gain success and knowledge. So I started studying successful people. And the very first one I studied was Napoleon Hill, and he wrote stories of successful people, Andrew Carnegie, Gerald Ford, all of the Wright brothers. And I started reading at 18, 19, 21. By the time I was 21, I had taken a real estate investment course. And by the time I was 22, I had bought 2 properties totaling at $1.2 million. By the time I was 23, I had lost it, not knowing how to handle, control, process money. Those are not positive traits that I had in my life. And because I did not have that type of roadmap, I failed, right? Mm-hmm. And decided at that point in time, and that, I'll have to explain this to you, that was doing that, investing in myself that way, that was the very first time I stated out loud that I loved something. Love was an interesting realization for me, as that was never something that I was never looking for that. And when I connected with something that made me feel good intrinsically, it was money. It was the act of being able to, out of my own efforts and out of my hard work, I was able to produce this great feeling that made me say, wow, I just did something at 22 that a lot of people throughout their lives tried to attain, and I had done it. And again, just because of a lack of further preparation on my part, I knew how to get it, I didn't know how to keep it. Right?
Wow.
So I had to dig a little further. After I had lost it, I went bankrupt, and again, instead of seeking out professional help in order to mitigate the situation, I hid. I didn't know how to bounce back right away, and most people don't. But I went into somewhat of a state of depression, and people are looking for you to get their money, blah 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 blah. But I was able to get back on track. I was able to make, get myself back up and start again.
That
26, was that your question?
yeah, the 26. Yes.
At 26, at 26, I am the corporate chef of the hottest entertainment and restaurant complex in Canada at the time. I was managing 4 restaurants, a catering company. I was making 6 digits figures. I was having the time of my life. I was on the cover of newspapers and having a blast
At 26.
at 26.
Wonderful. What are your what is the fondest memory of your parents as a child?
My fondest memories of my parents?
Mm-hmm.
Um, my parents were separate.
Mm-hmm.
My mother left us as a child to come to Canada to make a better life for us. Ultimately, my father also came to Canada, so my fondest memories of growing up were family dinners.
Fa- mm, mm.
Family dinners were very important.
And so talking about dinners, what would be your fondest food memory?
My fondest, I love seafood. I'm a seafood fanatic.
Wow.
Between growing up on the farm, the other half of my time was spent growing up in the seaside community of Negril, Jamaica.
Uh-huh.
So when I wasn't on the farm, I was at the seaside. My uncle was a fisherman. So you see how food is integral in my life.
Yes,
So
yes.
my uncle being a fisherman, we always had fresh fish, and fishermen always keep the little bits and the little bits of pieces for themselves, things that people may not buy. But being a fisherman, you knew that he would be able to take it home and do something wonderful with it for the family. So I was always impressed with when my uncle would come back from sea. We would have octopus, which we call sea puss, and we would have little shelves, so there would be little grunts, if you will, or little snappers that we would fry down and eat. So food was always integral in my life.
I understand that your mother was the first female sous chef at the CN Towers 360 restaurant. Was she your biggest influence in becoming a chef?
Absolutely, absolutely. The fact that she was my role model,
Mm-hmm.
and I when I was searching uh, for something to believe in and something to call my own, I guess somehow I recognized in my life that what my mother did made her happy, and for the most part.
Right.
And when I was able to look at the career choice and realize that when I became good enough, I could go anywhere in the world and do this. And that to me was exciting. The fact that I could ultimately go anywhere in the world and cook and gain that experience, and I enjoyed it.
Was it because of the sense of freedom?
That's definitely a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The sense of freedom, the ability to get on a plane and experience another culture and be able to connect with that other culture through food, for me it was in that the whole thought of that makes me very happy.
When did you actually? I know she was the biggest influence, but when did you actually realize that you wanted to become a chef?
Uh I think when I knew that it could help me get women.
Anthony,
That's a joke.
I know.
Um,
That's why I'm laughing.
when I was probably somewhere around 23 or 24
Mm-hmm.
when I accepted the fact that I was good at it.
Okay.
It was natural for me. Like I can take anything. I can take a blade of grass, Selwyn, and make a pie from it for you, and you would lose your mind.
Oh wow.
It's natural. It's effortless. Some people can pick up a piece of wood and carve it and make a mask out of it, and it's effortless. I can do that with food. It's not real, and this is not ego talking now. This is the fact that I've accepted the fact that it's my gift, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in doing so, I am honored to offer it and showcase it and present it, and it makes me happy to make you happy with food.
Talking about happiness and your mom as the biggest influence in your life, and you were searching for a role model and so on. Can you describe the feeling when you visited that restaurant where your mother was the sous chef? What was that feeling like?
That was wonderful. And the most wonderful part of that was being able to see all of the different ethnicities in the kitchen and in the restaurant working together for the same effort. There, at the time, the CN Tower was literally and figuratively the largest thing on the planet. Now, to have a dining experience at the CN Tower, this revolving restaurant that would seat 300 people in one sitting. It was wonderful as a child to be there to experience that. And when I saw the chefs and the sous chefs and everybody, there were people from every corner of the planet, Selvin,
Mm.
that were working together in that kitchen. So you had Italians, you had Middle Eastern, you had different Europeans, you had different West Indians, you had East Indian. It was amazing to see how, there was no racism. It was about food, and it was fabulous, and it was exciting, and it was the theater, the noise, the communication, the respect for the craft. It was wonderful, and I loved that. And as a child, to be able to be exposed to that left an indelible mark in my mind in terms of what food is and how wonderful it is, and how it can connect people.
Are you an extremely adventurous eater, Anthony? Are there any foods you wouldn't eat or even try?
Oh God, no, man, we've eaten just about everything, brother. Like, really, we don't. It would be hard at this stage of the game. I would be. I can't say that there's not many things that I haven't eaten at this point.
Wow.
We were in Moscow a few years ago, and we were in a Russian rock bar at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the facility came out, and they're very open, and recognize I'm highly visible, right? Being in Moscow. He came over, introduced himself, the owner did, and we ended up having a conversation, and he realized why I was there, opening a restaurant, doing consulting. And he says, please, stay with me, I'd love to buy you dinner. And he brought out an appetizer that was beautifully presented. It was just a wonderful, appetizer, and we started eating. And by the time I finished eating, I had to ask. I said, "By the way, what is that? It's so wonderful." He said, "Oh, those are pig testicles."
What?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, I'm here, Anthony. Okay. Wow. Um, Pig testicles.
Yeah. And what it was he had taken potatoes and boiled the potatoes and sliced them into silver dollar rolls. And then he had taken the protein and boiled it and seasoned it and fried it and placed it on top of the silver dollar roll potato, and then made a sour cream and green onion and garlic aioli and presented it on top of that. And then there was a sauce, and it was presented as a salad. And it was brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you couldn't, in where my direction is, I couldn't realistically expect to do what I'm doing and be squeamish or be standoffish, especially in somebody's home. Now, I'm saying that because I am in a foreign country, and if I am not accepting of their ways, I think that's going to put up walls in terms of how we approach food.
Mm-hmm.
If the restaurateur goes out of his way to offer you dinner, and he is proud of his establishment. I'm sitting in a 500-seat, several million-dollar establishment. This individual brings out this dish, asks you to try it. Turning up my nose at it would be considered quite an insult.
Yes.
So
I
I would
understand.
never go about disrespecting myself or the host that way.
Mm-hmm. What is it like competing in chef competitions, and what does winning say to you about your skills?
Um, I got into it accidentally. Uh, I happened to have been walking by the lab at school where some of the competitors were getting ready to start their training for the competition, and I poked my head in and asked, "So what are y'all doing in here?" He says, "Oh, we're getting ready for the competition." And I said, "Oh, interesting." And I stayed for a few minutes and I watched and observed, and I kind of said, "Well, that's all they're doing." I looked at what was being prepared and what was being made, and I kind of said, "Well, I can do that," And it was never something that I thought about, but I figured if they were doing it and they were getting accolades at it, and I saw that I could do it too, then why not give it a try? Yeah, the very first competition I entered in, I got a bronze medal. That pissed me off. Because I don't really enter into anything to get a bronze medal, right? So I kind of beat myself up for getting a bronze, even though I only put in a bronze effort, right? So I kind of looked at myself and said, well, maybe if I put in a little more effort, I could get that gold. So I challenged myself. And by the next competition, I had gotten a gold. So I looked at myself, I studied, I looked at what the past winners for the past several years had done. And I went to the instructor and I kind of said, I want that gold. And he says, well, let's see how you can do that. So I sharpened up my skills. I, paid closer attention to what the best people around me were doing and made sure that I was able to compete at that level also.
And last question before the break: what is the difference cooking in a kitchen in a restaurant in Jamaica and one in Canada?
There's not a lot of difference. For me, brother, I've cooked on small yachts. I've cooked in kitchens that are the size of closets. I have designed kitchens that is prepared to feed 1,800 people seated at the same time. So for me, once we make up our minds that we are going in to do this event, if I know that I'm coming to New York as an example to do something for you, my questions to you would be, what's my kitchen capacity? What does it look like? Take a picture, send it to me. This way I know how to better position myself, right? So the idea is that you are prepared no matter what the situation to walk in. I walk in, once I have a sharp knife and a stove, we can create miracles, yeah?
All right, let's take a quick break.
Said, suffer the little children to come unto me. Every day, more than 30,000 children around the world die of preventable diseases. More than 300,000 children are being used in war as child soldiers. Lord have mercy. A child should be loved. A child should be held. A child should be clean. A child shouldn't smell. A child shouldn't go to bed hungry at night. A child should be taught wrong from right. A child should learn to say thanks and please. A child shouldn't suffer from preventable disease. A child is a fruit that shouldn't be picked before it's time. To do that to a child should be classified.
With Chef Anthony Mair. Anthony, I want to go into the chat room for a moment. Desiree or Jay asked, "Who do you admire as a chef in the Caribbean?"
Get you.
So I'm sorry. I had this thing turned off. Sorry about that. I want to go into the chat room for a moment, and where Jay asked, "Who do you admire as a chef in the Caribbean?"
Who do I admire as a chef in the Caribbean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, you know what? We have an organization in the Caribbean. The acronym is the Caribbean Culinary Network, CCN. We started this organization years ago some years ago with the intention of mentoring emerging chefs, all of these chefs that are entering into high school. As an example, Jamaica has 163 high schools, 120 of them teach culinary. That means that there is a very wide emerging market of young professional culinarians coming about. I admire these young individuals that are coming out of school. So our intention is to work with them to develop their understanding of food and what it is to take a look at their cuisine differently, to take a look at our cuisine differently, to offer it, present it, and showcase it to the world, but not in any sort of disparaging negative ways. We have some really odd perceptions of our food in terms of just how we present it. You know, we have an item called breadfruit, and some years ago we ended up putting on a breadfruit cooking competition, working with these kids, these youths that are in culinary, and taking this item that again is somewhat neutral. So what they were able to do with this item was brilliant. At the end of this competition, we ended up with over 200 different breadfruit recipes. Once we challenged these young people, you'd be amazed at what they can do with the items that are at their fingertips. And that's how I've chosen to elevate the cuisine. Working with these youths that's grown up with these foods, they can create miracles, and they have, and I'm so very proud of them. So as far as the people that I admire in our community, CARICOM, I'm going to have to say our youth. They're brilliant. They really are. Once given the opportunity to succeed, given a little bit of direction and guidance, Selwyn, they're brilliant, man. Brilliant.
You introduced culinary skills, I believe, or you teach culinary skills to the youth in Jamaica. Why focus on the youth?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for asking that. Why focus on them? Because I think they're worth it, and I think they deserve my attention. Some years ago, since I left Jamaica as a child, somewhere inside me, I have been wanting to get back there. And I believe I probably said it out loud when I was 10, that I wanted to island hop the rest of my days. Saying that out when I was 10 and repeating it. When I was 20, the question came back to me somehow saying, what will you do to be able to island hop the rest of your days? And I asked myself that question. So I said, I want to go back home. I want to go back to the Caribbean. Then I asked myself, what will I do in order to be able to sustain myself? And I asked myself that question probably for about 10 years. So when I was 30, I said, you know what? Knives. I am going to have my own line of professional chef knives that I will sell, sharpen, rent to the entire CARICOM market. Now, the CARICOM region, the Caribbean islands, we are all about hospitality and culinary and hotels and restaurants and tourism, and our tourism product is brilliant. No, there is not another region on the planet that is more visited than the Caribbean region. So I knew that I had a market. I knew that once I put myself out there, I built a business case, I have a market, then why couldn't I sell knives to the entire Caribbean of an emerging market? And so that's what it is. That's what I decided I was going to do when I was 30. So then it took about another 8 years to formally develop the plan. So I'm 38 now, and I'm thinking. So I get my business plan started.
But Anthony, could you tell us? Could you tell us why? I mean, I want to talk about the knives in a few minutes, but could you bring us, because there are lots of migrants, right, who are successful abroad, in Canada and America and England and around the world, and who want to repatriate. What I'd like to bring out from you is this passion that you have for focusing on the youth. Could you focus on that a little bit? Tell us a little bit about that. What drove you to that?
All right. So I went and go. I'm gonna tie it together for you.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I decided that we're gonna go home and we're going to sell our knives to the emerging market. Well, the emerging market are the youths that are enrolled in all of these culinary programs. So I'm out there trying to set up a business. I am trying to get into all of these 120 high schools that Jamaica has to introduce myself and to sell my knives. Well, in trying to sell my knives, I'm meeting all of these kids. I am meeting these thousands and thousands of young people that I realize that I have their attention. They, in telling my story and letting in them seeing that I was once where they are, I come from where they come from, but working with food and in the industry, I have been able to achieve something. I have their attention. And recognizing that I owe this to them. I owe them my time. I owe them my energy. I couldn't realistically go in front of them and ask them to buy this knife from me and not offer them something a little more. I could have done that, sell them my knife and leave and go on to make the next sale. But something was keeping me there. Something kept me there. Something kept pulling me back, and I ended up going in and doing career days and speaking to all of these high school students about what I had achieved at that point in time and telling my story to these students. And we ended up becoming that mentor. They would be calling me, asking me questions about the industry and what's it like, and I'm getting calls from the school boards and from principals and teachers saying, we saw you on television and we see you here. Can you come in and speak to our kids? And I ended up doing that 2, 3, 4 days a week across the island. As I recognized that there was value.
Wow. So what is most rewarding to you when you're engaged with them?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
What is most rewarding to you when you're engaged with them in class?
What's most rewarding? Well, I'll start off by saying being invited there was rewarding enough, but the fact that I had their attention, the fact that I had something that they wanted, and you could see their exuberance, you could see how excited they were that someone came in and actually cared about them enough to be there to continue, to share with them the story. And to offer them another perspective of their chosen vocation. When I speak to the youth about culinary, I paint a very broad picture. I try not to be too minute. They say that they're doing their cooking course. I want to speak to them about not just cooking local cuisine, but I want them to imagine themselves cooking in Italy, cooking Italian food. I want them to imagine cooking in Chicago, some of the best foods I've ever had, where I've had it, the chefs that I've worked with, the brotherhood, the fraternity that I am part of outside of that region, and how welcoming the fraternity is. That we see food differently. We see food as the opportunity to unite. We see food as an opportunity to share. We see food as an opportunity. It's limitless in terms of what we can do. Take a look at what every one of us can do with a potato, and take a look at the things that we can do with greens. Take a look at every one of us can pick up a piece of fish and do something completely different with it, and it's a learning experience. So that, to me, to be able to sit there and have these conversations and open up their minds, or continue to open up their minds, that it continues to become limitless. That we are there. I mean, the saying that there is no box, really, Selwyn, there is no box when it comes to food. There isn't anything we can. We eat raw fish. Yeah? That means that we can do absolutely anything with it.
In your
it's
opinion,
boundless. So I enjoy challenging them that way.
in your opinion, do you believe enough of them are enrolling in the culinary arts?
I well, yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. I think we could always do more, and I think, and how we achieve that is telling that story. Is to show them how vast the industry really is, and how wonderful it can be. And the more we tell that story, the more we share the vision, the more we have industry professionals coming back into the classrooms to tell the story, I think is the way to further engage.
What is it you believe about you, Ant? I think you alluded, you mentioned it a little bit, but if you can just tell us a little bit more, what is it you believe about you, a prominent executive chef, um, that successful, I would say, that would cause you to be attracted to teaching culinary skills to the youth of Jamaica in such a big way?
So I'm going to need you to ask that question again. I'm sorry.
Okay, what is it about you? What is it you believe about you, a prominent and successful executive chef, which caused you to be attracted to teaching culinary skills to the youth in Jamaica in such a big way?
What is it about? I it would it I think it would be a shame that knowing what I know that to let it die with me, I think would be a shame.
I like that.
I think that there is something to tell the story, to share the knowledge, to offer another perspective, to enlighten the youth, to kind of say, you know what, look here, I've done it. I'm still trying to do it. I still feel that I can learn so much more after achieving what it is I've achieved. I would like to share that with you. And in sharing that with you, I would hope that you would go and far surpass everything that I've done.
Any advice for young students aspiring to enter the field of culinary arts?
Say that again?
Any advice for young students aspiring to enter the field of culinary arts?
Yeah, man, do it. There is.
I like that.
It's a wonderful experience. If you are creative, and if you're passionate about food, and if you like food, for me it was the fact that I could go anywhere in the world and do it. That to me made me very happy, knowing that I had that freedom to travel and be employed and work with something that is necessary for survival, really. So you will always be employable, and that's a bonus. That's really, you will.
Anthony, I'm going to ask you what might be a little bit of controversial question. I don't think so though, but here we go. We Caribbeans, we love our countries. Yet nationals like Haitians and Jamaicans are considered two of the most patriotic amongst us. Why do you believe this is so among Jamaicans?
What was that about Jamaicans? I'm sorry?
Haitians, right? We all love our countries and we all have some amount of patriotism towards our respective countries. But amongst the Haitians and Jamaicans, they are considered some of the most patriotic. Yeah. Why do you think this is so amongst Jamaicans?
I would say probably because we're vocal.
Vocal, interesting.
We're vocal. We have you will always know when there's a Jamaican around. we're not afraid to tell you we're Jamaican, man.
Well, let me ask you this, Anthony. Let me ask you this.
Selwyn, we're proud of our country. We recognize that on you take a look at the globe, you take a look at the map, Selwyn, we are a dot. And for our 2.7 million people, you can't go anywhere in this planet and not know of Jamaica. Yeah? So yes, we good and bad. However, we recognize that we are passionate about whatever it is. Whenever we choose to be passionate about something, we give that. Not only in sports and music and our food. You can go anywhere and talk about. Look, man, I am in Eastern Europe. I'm traveling across Eastern Europe. What do I have on my backpack? I have on a Jamaican flag and a Canadian flag. There are people stopping me on the corners talking about, they can't say the word Jamaica, but they recognize the flag and they want to come up and have a conversation with you because of so many different instances, whether it is sports or music. I mean, everybody.
Let me ask you this then. What do you, Anthony, enjoy most about being Jamaican, being in Jamaica, and being an executive chef that has the array of Caribbean flavors at his fingertips? 3 questions, 3 parts. A, what do you enjoy most about being Jamaican? B, being in Jamaica. We had this conversation privately before. And 3, or C, being an executive chef that has the array of Caribbean flavors at his fingertips.
All right. Well, I'm going to answer that. So start with the first one was, what do I enjoy about being a Jamaican?
Yes, sir.
I enjoy about our history.
Okay.
We have, through all of its turmoil and through all of its negative portrayal of our history, I still feel very comfortable in terms of what I know our history really is. We have overcome just about every adversity that has ever been depicted on any people, and we are still rising above it. I am proud of our accomplishments, and I love my country. What was the second part?
Second one, being in Jamaica.
Oh my! When I am in Jamaica, if I can say, I'm home. Mm-hmm. So when I am in Jamaica, that plane flies over that airport, and I get butterflies. I get off that plane, and I feel my people. I walk out of that airport and I am home. Mm-hmm. Home. That's important to me.
And see, being an executive chef that has the array of Caribbean flavors at his fingertips.
Oh, my friend, that's easy. The world comes to Jamaica. The world comes to Jamaica. And when I get guests that are coming from Asia and India and different parts of North America, I can't wait to show them the bounty and the brilliance of our food. And I do a culinary tourism product. I invite people down to Jamaica, and I take them around to farms, and I take them diving and fishing and whatever it is we can. I take them to climb trees and get coconut water. I take them to areas where we are growing all of our own. I took a couple out a couple of months ago, and we pulled up a 55-pound yellow yam. We dug it for 8 hours, and it was the time of their life. They had never seen anything like that. They had never had more fun. This is how I want to showcase my island and my region. Things that people don't necessarily think about, or their concept of the island is sea and sun. Well, I can show you so much more and make you absolutely love it.
If you could eat one Jamaican dish for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Callaloo. It would have to be when I'm home. Callaloo. We juice callaloo. I can eat callaloo 3 times a day. I can do a callaloo quiche. I can do soup. I can do I can do callaloo for breakfast. I love callaloo. And it's good for you.
Talking about Caribbean centricity, yes. Right? What can Caribbeans teach others about Caribbean cuisine?
Not enough. We are on this path. We are currently doing workshops across Canada called Redefining Caribbean Cuisine. And that came about as a result. If you take a look at what we as Caribbeans offer in North America with regards to our food, we're primarily doing little takeout restaurants that, we put all of our food in little styrofoam boxes, and, we push it through a little opening, or, we kind of say here, and we charge $5 for it. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that. I think that our cuisine, our food, can and should be presented at the top of the food experience, just as French is, just as how Italians are looked at, just as how Asian cuisine is looked at. We, the community, do a massive disservice to ourselves by continuing to portray and offer and serve our food that way. Yeah? If we do not start presenting it, showcasing it, offering it at the $25 range, now we will continue to serve it at the $5, $6, $7, $8 range. I'm no longer interested in doing that because it is only us that's doing that. It is only our community that's doing that by only offering it to our community at that price point. When we make the decision that our food is good enough to offer to the rest of the world and offer it at a price that we can live at, there's a business here. It's a business. Running a restaurant is one of the hardest things anybody will ever do in their life. But we do it, and we diminish our capacity by saying, capping it at, $8, $9, $10, $11, whatever it is, But that's I'm sorry, that's no longer good enough. We need to redefine it. We need to offer it, present it, package it, showcase it, and let people understand the brilliance of it. The amount of work, the amount of effort that we put into producing our foods, it dictates a different price points than the ones that we're currently selling it at.
Let me just go into the chat room for a moment. Carol asked, what is your least favorite dish?
What is my least favorite dish?
Yes.
That's a very tough question. What is Caribbean dish, or what is my least favorite dish?
I don't know. Carol, I guess she
What
may
is my
tell us.
least favorite dish? That's a hard question.
She said
I gotta
Caribbean.
tell you.
She said Caribbean.
What is my least favorite? What is my least favorite Caribbean dish?
I think about it. Let's move on because time creeping up on us.
Yeah.
Patrick said yes, and I guess he was he said yes to when you were talking about how we as Caribbeans prepare our foods, or how we sell our foods in the restaurants and so on. Dawn said, "This is fascinating. Callaloo is my favorite food also. It's good to know that I have good taste. Laugh out loud. I agree with the presentation of our food as you speak of it. I never understood that." In 2005, you visited the Ukraine and you opened a restaurant there. If you can tell us in a few seconds or so on, what was that experience like? And here's what I want. How did locals react to your soul food cuisine?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm.
That was an amazing experience, and that proved my point with regards to our cuisine being accepted by the world. I show up in a former Soviet Union country, only a few years out of communism, and make statements like I'm working with protein like kangaroo. I am working with oysters. I am working with and making them Caribbean-esque. We are making wild boar sausages. We're working with seafoods and fish and introducing those types of protein with local Caribbean spices and offering it to Ukrainians and Russians and Hungarians on an international scale, and charging them the cheapest thing on the menu was $9 upwards of $48 price points. These are items and flavors that we are intrinsic to in the Caribbean, but presenting them on a European, on a world scale. And it was accepted. It was accepted. Look, we opened the restaurant. It lasted 3 years before I left. Some of the greatest experiences of my life to date so far.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a quick. We are back with Anthony Mair. Anthony, where does your passion for teaching come from?
Where does my passion for cooking come from?
No, teaching.
Teaching. My passion for teaching. I love my craft. I love my art form. I love my vocation. And again, I think it would be very selfish of me to not share that.
Mm-hmm.
We share it in our restaurants with our guests. I think it's paramount that we look at the emerging market. And for me, looking at my community. And when I speak about my community, when I speak about my home, let's clarify this. When I speak about my home for me is anywhere in the Caribbean. Yeah, I do not like the idea of how we have been presenting ourselves as Jamaican or Trinidadian or Bajan, and then we become island centric that way. You know, I think we need to have a broader scope of our region, because we will not flourish as a community if we do not start looking at CARICOM as one. It's a very easy thing to say, I know, and it's a very difficult thing to accomplish. I know that too. But I think that by working with the emerging market, the youths of today, we have a lot of organizations out there that are trying to do this. CTO, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, CHA, the Caribbean Hotel Association, CTDC, all of these tourism destination products are working to encompass the Caribbean as a viable economic entity. Paramount. The best way to go about that is to work with the youth to get them to start seeing that our community as one, and start showing them real numbers in terms of the economic viability of our community once we unite this, once we understand it, once we see where the money comes from, how it goes, and how it can benefit us as a community. That's important. So my teachings and me wanting to achieve this, when I'm out there and I'm speaking to the emerging market, the youths that are enrolled in hospitality and culinary and tourism, that's my message. My message is like, hello, yo, man, whoa. We need to talk about this on a Caribbean-centric level. That needs to be center of all the things that we do. We need to focus our energies on the culinary tourism, the hospitality, the tourism product of our region. That's my message. So getting out there talking about food, yes. We all have green banana, we all have plantain, we all have yam, we all have coconut, so on and so forth. But how do we now look at it on a larger scale, more so than just our backyard? And that's a very big part of my message.
You in your ad, we have change a perspective, change a mindset, change a nation.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about when you mention those things?
Yeah, to tag on to what it is I've just said, we have actually realized that by getting into the community where the youth are looking at their vocation and looking at what they would like to put their energy towards, we've realized that by imparting that knowledge of the global perspective of food and culture and tourism and culinary tourism and cultural culinary integrity, by having conversations such as those with the youth, we can change their perspective in terms of the industry. And once I have their attention, and that is the message that it is we're sending, and we are communicating with them on that level, then we can get them to be more broader on their outlook. And now that we can connect that, now that they're looking at the industry at that level, they will start to begin to act and behave differently.
Mm-hmm.
We've been putting on these events called Chef's Day Off.
Uh-huh.
Chef's Day Off is the practical approach to the mentorship problem that exists in the Caribbean. The fatherlessness, the single family homes. We know the story, right? We're not going to get into that.
Right.
But we step in as an organization, and we've been putting on these events called Chef's Day Off, and we have culinary competitions, and I have these culinary competitions, Selwyn, on beaches and in parks and in cane fields and in mangroves, and we set up tables and put up burners, and I open it up to the public, and we get down industry professionals, and we get hundreds of culinary students coming down, and we're putting on competitions, and there is a brotherhood and a fraternity and the love and the passion that goes along with the food. And I have chefs from different islands and different countries coming down, and we've been able to create this network of industry professionals that are actually changing the perspective of these individuals and of the situation as we speak.
As I listen to you, another thing that comes to mind, as I listen to you describe the camaraderie, the getting together and doing something that they love, that these youth love. Would you say that would also help with not just the reduction of crime, reduction of mischief, but more so the increase of a sense of accomplishment, high self-esteem, and those things? Would you say that those efforts would eventually would eventually create those induce that as part of the ethos in Jamaica or wherever you host these things?
Brother, look, when I meet these young people, and I have rules too. When you come in to do this competition, you can't have your pants hanging off your ass. You can't be walking into my realm, into our realm, into this unity that I love and I respected and I created for the betterment of you. And you can't come in there disrespecting anything like that. There is a code of conduct. There is a mission statement. There are rules and regulations that go in. So understanding that when you walk in, there is a level of understanding and respect. So the minute that I have stated that this is how we will conduct ourselves, you immediately get their attention so that they start seeing that, oh, geez, we can't do that here. There is Selwyn, what's happening is there is the lack of guidance, meeting them on their level, the communication, the understanding, the respect, the level of how you gain autonomy, how you gain that respect, how you gain their respect. So our organization definitely preaches all of those types of scenarios that we believe, we see is lacking and we deem necessary for success.
Let me go to the chat. Sorry, Anthony. Finish your thought. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In the chat room, Don said, I long to see an upscale Caribbean restaurant in D.C. Would you ever consider expanding to this area?
In Washington, D.C.?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, I would love to venture into Washington, D.C. There's, if she's got the capital, tell her to give me a call.
Okay. I'm sure she lives close to the capital. That's not what you're talking about, right, Anthony?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. My rule of thumb now, if you don't have $1.3 million US to get into the venture, you call somebody else.
Wow. And Patrick said, asked, what do you think is the fear or limiting belief that causes West Indians not to showcase our food in the way you described?
Perspective. Who's your market?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the market? If we say that we are opening up a Caribbean themed restaurant and you are putting it in a shopping mall that is downtown DC, your market is everybody in that shopping mall. Yes?
Yes.
So by making that, and again, we're very bad when it comes to doing business plans. People decide they're going to open up a restaurant and they find the place that they can get away with or they can get by with paying this much rent, and they're going to sell their food for this much. And no, in putting together a proper and effective business plan that you have a 5-year plan, what's the rent, what's the cost, you look at everything, you've got your location. putting together a great business plan is the start of a successful restaurant.
Talking about emerging markets, Anthony, did that influence you creating your own culinary tools?
Absolutely.
And and before we continue, could you tell us where, if, for those who are listening and are interested in purchasing your knives, where they can find them?
Our website is up at www.maircutlery, that's M-A-I-R, cutlery.com.
Maircutlery.com?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And Dawn in the chat room, Dawn said, "Good one, both of you." LOL. When we were discussing the capital thing, and what do you feel that students should focus on to get the most out of their culinary education?
I think that's a broad question. What should they focus on most? I would have to say the history of food. That's very important for young people to understand agro, how food, natural foods. I believe that some of the best chefs I've met and worked with are chefs that grew up in a agro reality. So they understand when a chicken should be consumed. They understand, making sure that the proteins that you are going to consume gets treated well. They understand when to pick the mango. They understand why this mango is better. They understand the flavor components. For me, I think it's really important that students get in there and actually do externships and actually go out into work experience and make sure that they are getting varied experience, make sure that they're working in German restaurants and make sure that they're working in Italian restaurants. Again, food is a uniting experience, and I just think that the more knowledge you have about the food, the better off.
Well, what do you enjoy about creating new dishes and flavors?
See, I'm weird. I dream about food. So I'll have a writing pad by my desk and by my nightstand, and I have food dreams. I have food dreams of flavor combinations that I want to try because I've opened myself up to not limiting my creativity. And I read everything about food. I buy magazines from different countries and books, and I'm interested in fusion, and I'm always putting Caribbean-esque first, and by doing so, I am interested in what flavor combinations will work with the intrinsics of my island and my regions.
What is an emerging ingredient you are working with today? You're working on again? What is an emerging ingredient that you're working with a lot today?
What is the emerging?
What is an emerging ingredient out there that you're working with a lot today?
Right now, we're working with lionfish. I don't know if you know what lionfish is.
No, I don't.
Lionfish is have you heard of it?
No.
Lionfish is a new protein. I say that, okay. So I'll tell you the story. 1988, there's an aquarium in South Florida that gets busted up during the hurricane. In this aquarium, there are lionfish. Lionfish is a breed of fish that is primarily from South Asia. So it has piranha-like properties. They don't eat you, but they have these spines on the back of the fish that if it penetrates your flesh, temporary paralysis can set in. Now, I've spoken to fishermen that have been poked by this fish, and these fishermen tell me that it is the most painful thing that they have ever experienced. Imagine that you're in the water, 50 meters down, 40 meters down, and you're trying to catch, you've not seen this fish before, but it comes and stings you, and temporary paralysis starts setting in your leg. Well, it's a pretty terrifying experience. So these fishermen that were out fishing, they started seeing this fish multiply, and not knowing what it is as a new species, they get to understand that this is where this fish comes from, but it breeds so rapidly. When these fish breed, they breed up to 300. They lay up to 300 eggs at a time. This fish, being new to the region, is consuming all of the other fish throughout the region of the Caribbean. Now it's become a problem. So what's happened over the past few years is that the government, not only in Jamaica but across the region, have had to start dealing with this new protein, invasive species, showing up in our waters. So we've now had to start eating it. So there had to have been the whole education component of educating the population about what this fish is and isn't, and can we eat it, and how do we eat it, and how do we treat it, and what to do with it. So this has been what I've been working on, one of the projects that I've been working on throughout the Caribbean over the past few years, in terms of educating the population about how to best consume this fish. And that's the protein that I've been working on. Very exciting.
Well, let's take a quick break, very quick, and Anthony,
Hi.
do you listen to music while you cook and prepare menus and new dishes? And if so, what kind of music you like listening to?
You know who I'm recently into is Adele.
Adele.
Yeah. I think she's brilliant.
So she is. So she
Yeah,
is.
man. I mean, I've just probably within the last 6 months or so, I think that she's wonderful. And then I'm always listening to Bob, you know.
Can't do without Bob, right?
No, man, I can't live without Bob. So right now for me it's Adele. Well, again, it depends. If I'm in my kitchen, that's what I'm listening to. If we're in a commercial kitchen with other chefs, you don't listen to music.
Okay. Why are knife techniques and proper kitchen equipment such an integral part of your seminars when you go down to Jamaica?
In every professional, the right tool for the right job is very necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, a knife is paramount. You can't, with a dull knife, you are frustrated. Remember now, in our industry, if you are cooking, you will hold a knife in your hand for several hours a day. If this knife is not too, if it's dull, if it's not the right size, if it's not the right knife, it's frustrating. And if you need to create a pleasant environment, a pleasant work environment. There's an ergonomics that go along with working in your kitchen, working in your space, having your space be sort of that congruent with all of the things that you're trying to do. So when you have a restaurant that seats 200 people, and your business plan states that you need to make $25,000 a week in order for you to be viable, you need to ensure that not just the chairs are comfortable, not just that there's heat in your dining room, but when it goes into the kitchen, to make sure that your cooks have all of the tools that are necessary to be able to produce 200 meals a day. So in setting up your plan and putting your kitchen equipment into place, that's very, very important, brother. You need to, there's a lot to it.
Are you hopeful for the youth of the Caribbean in the culinary arts?
Say that again?
Are you hopeful for the youth of the Caribbean in the culinary arts?
Oh, goodness gracious, I am very hopeful.
And
I am very hopeful. I have no doubt in my mind that if I have anything to do with it, that they will be a success. Absolutely.
Can you tell us what challenge you overcame that you're most proud of?
What challenge have I overcome that I am most proud of? Yeah, I would have to say forgiving myself.
Forgiving.
I'm going through some things in my life right now that forgiving myself for messing up the way that I had was a shame that I lived with for a very long time. And I am only now being able to deal with the shame and address it and face it so that I could actually look at myself in the mirror.
What is your guilty pleasure, Anthony? And what do you snack?
Guilty pleasure?
Yeah, what do you snack on that no one else when no one else is around?
Cracker Jacks.
Cracker Jacks.
I love Cracker Jacks. Man.
Okay. Is this your dream profession, Anthony?
I'm sorry?
Is this your dream profession?
Is this my dream profession?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. It allows me to travel. I have the opportunity, immediate gratification, self-gratification from guests as they walk in. I have an opportunity to change your day. And I love that the decision, when you make the decision to come and see me at the restaurant or choose my catering services, I am completely elated, and I get the opportunity, whether it is you invite me to your home or your office or whatever, I recognize that there's choice, and you have chosen to offer your disposable income to me. I don't take that for granted at all, and I love the opportunity to make you happy and to please you with food, and
Having said that, I wonder if this is a fair question, but I'm going to ask it because I'm curious. What is it about your work that feeds your spirit?
What is it about my work that feeds my story?
Your spirit.
My spirit?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I've sort of answered it, but the freedom of it.
The freedom.
I can walk into the opportunity to be creative. The opportunity to take that same chicken Selwyn and turn it into, and every day be able to prepare something different with it. That opportunity to work with different spices, the opportunity to meet different people every day. Did I say that one already?
Yeah.
But it's that freedom. It's freeing. It's a really wonderful experience. I love my craft. I love the time that we're in with respect to being that adventurous about food. There's so much happening right now around food, and it's really wonderful that you can, eating is a pleasure. It really is.
Let me go into the chat room for a second. Let me see. Jay asked, have you ever flopped while creating a work of art?
Have I ever
flopped while creating?
All the time. Absolutely. I am, man. I mean, I still burn things. I've been on competitions where things just haven't worked out. Yeah, man. My goodness, I have failed much more than I've succeeded. Don't let this conversation fool you in terms of you thinking that everything that I've ever done has been a success. No. I have failed much more than I have succeeded. My thing is that I've just not stopped trying. Wonderful.
DSACCB said, share thoughts on sustaining high standards in quality of meals and service. Sadly, if businesses manage to exist beyond the first year, those key ingredients are forced to lose their flavor and public support.
I'm sorry, Selwyn, you're going to have to say that again.
All right. Share your thoughts on sustaining high standards in quality of meals and service. Sadly, if businesses manage to exist beyond the first year, those key ingredients are forced to lose their flavor and public support.
Yeah, that's poor planning, Selwyn. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. By going into it with a sound business plan, and by having a sound business plan with regards to marketing dollars, if you're going into this business, you better understand that the first year is a blip. It happens. If you do not have your funding in place to give this thing a fair go, look, man, our industry is very rocky. you do not, the 87% of restaurants that open fail within the first 2 years. 87%. Understand the numbers here. So there a lot of money is being thrown at this. So when these things happen and service and quality suffers is because we have not planned well.
What is next for Anthony Mair?
My intention, my vision is that I want to be a ambassador for the Caribbean region. By being an ambassador for the Caribbean region, I intend to work with the CTO and the CHA and the CTDC to have better education formats, not just the current one that exists, but by uniting the Caribbean using food and sending that message and looking at different tourism products coming about. The current tourism product that exists has been in place since the Caribbean started doing tourism with regards to sun and sand. I think that we need to expand our culinary tourism product to ecotourism, to health and wellness tourism. Our population is getting older, and this emerging population that is getting older is looking for a different type of tourism product. That health and wellness is it. We need to take a look at the world economy and see how the Caribbean fits in to the world economy in terms of what's happening with regards to the tourism product. And I think the more we have those conversations, the more we can better equip the emerging youth in terms of better preparing themselves for the next level of tourism product. My intention is to work with these organizations that better exist to further the understanding and to be able to reach and communicate with the youth that are coming into the industry.
You know, I always find on this show that whenever, as the conversation gets better and, time creeps up and cheats us. But I want to ask you this before we close. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 13-year-old self and then the 18-year-old self?
Oh, wow. I would tell my 13-year-old self that I love you, and love yourself. Because that, in loving yourself, you probably won't get into that much trouble that you got yourself into. At 13 years old and a 13-year-old boy, you don't truly understand that. You're just going with the flow. You're going with the emotion. You're going with it, and the decisions that I made at 13 years old were very bad ones. Very bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other part of it?
The 18 years old.
My 18-year-old self, I would probably repeat what I told to my 13-year-old self.
Fair enough.
Because I wasn't listening, Selwyn.
And I remember you decided that, you realized that you were very good at cooking and it came naturally to you. And at, I think it's 22 or 23, you decided to get into it. And I'm going to ask you this. What would you tell the 24 years old?
The 24-year-old?
Yes.
Study harder. I would definitely have spent more time in school than I did. I didn't apply myself to the learnings. I didn't apply myself to the teachings. I didn't try to learn the lessons, which I ultimately learned when these lessons were being presented to me. My mind was there. I wasn't focused. Yeah, I would have told myself to focus a little more, pay attention to the lessons, and develop a plan. Be a little more stringent and be a little more rigorous, and maybe ask the more poignant questions and do a little more research. I mean, yeah.
In the chat room, Patrick laughed out loud. Don said, I love your passion for your work, your love for working with young people, and the broadness of your vision. Maybe another couple of years and a couple million, I will have you come to DC. Smiles.
That's fantastic. Tell her I'll be ready and waiting.
Okay. And what can you tell us about you that most people do not know?
What can I tell you about me that most people do not know?
Unless they're very close to you.
I'm a dreamer.
You're a dreamer.
These things that I've embarked upon,
Mm-hmm.
before they actually materialize, I have actually, in my subconsciousness, they've been born out of my subconsciousness, and then in paying attention to them, I have actually been able to realize them. These are not just things that these are not just things that just happen to me. They've been attempted, and I have failed, and I have gone back and tried to redefine it and structure it, and and because I have it in my subconsciousness, I'm constantly dreaming about it. So the dreamer can actually be real, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make a lot of sense. And thanks for saying that. What profession other than yours would you attempt?
Lawyer.
Lawyer.
Yeah.
Any particular reason?
After getting in trouble so much as a youth, because Selwyn, I was that child. Yeah. After getting into so much trouble as a youth, I would probably. I like law. I like the idea of being able to defend people. I like the idea of being able to represent someone that feels that they have been at the hands of some injustice, and I like the idea of being able to set it straight and to work with and exemplify the law.
Anthony, what do you do on your days off?
I read.
Read. And last but not least, question I asked all my guests: what makes you laugh out loud?
What makes me laugh out loud? My granddaughter.
Ah.
Yeah, man, I'm a grandfather. And
congratulations.
Thank you very much. And whenever I go to see her, she is just so fabulous. She will say the most amazing. They just say mine, and there's no, they're so innocent, and it's wonderful. And I go and I see her, and she just makes me laugh, and I love laughing with her.
Anthony, thank you so much, my friend.
Brother, thank you for the invite. I really do appreciate you. And the last thing before you go, Selwyn, look, having this platform means the world to me. I recognize that we are on a path and on a journey, and then being able to, come to this medium to share this message is a wonderful opportunity, and I appreciate you inviting me into your realm. So thank you for this.
You're welcome. You're quite welcome. Thank you for being so candid and eloquent. And there's so much more to talk about, because you are so multifaceted, Anthony, that I felt that the time was not enough. So now that you're a member of CWS, I am going to invite you to come back sometime next year and share some more with us. Because Anthony, you continue to grow and do wonderful things. You're a dreamer, so there's never, ever an end to what you can create. Am I accurate in that?
You are very accurate, and I thank you for the invite, and I will most definitely take you up on that. I look forward to coming back and sharing with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So this is Selwyn Collins saying good night, and to my listeners, thank you. Tomorrow, tune in, same time, 8:30 to 10, for a conversation with Captain Jerry Gavaya. Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.
Arrowhead, I love my golden arrowhead. I don't think you heard me. I said arrowhead. I love my golden arrowhead. Mama, mama, mama. Oh, Gigi, mama.